All right. So this should be streaming. Like it's your camera set up. There. All right. Is this thing ready to go yet?
I don't know. You tell me.
I'm ready to go.
Jeffro, the sound engineer, can you hear us? Can you see us? But do you hear me?
All right. I think this is finally ready to go. For the audience, you ever know what it's like when you have like a perfect system for everything and everything works beautifully? And then anytime you want to do anything, you just sit down, you know where everything is, and you can knock it all out, and it's so simple. Now imagine having to use Andy's janky, nothing set up shit where I have to sit down. Oh, we're just going to jump on YouTube. Wait a minute. Like YouTube's not there. Like what's going on?
I was about to, I was bracing myself to defend Windows when you started bashing Windows, but
Oh no, well
you went
Windows
straight for
too,
my jugular.
but I mean the YouTube stuff should have been like right there.
Did you turn my sound down at all? I'm hearing you are quiet. Corey sounds good. Is it that I'm not close enough to my microphone? Is that what it is?
Um, you're through on here pretty good.
Okay.
Hold on. I can just turn you up. Say something.
I'm saying stuff. I'm saying you're a quack face.
Oh shit. Yeah, I can hear you a lot better. Yeah, whoever said you were coming in low was
Okay.
definitely yeah, yeah, I can hear you a lot better now.
All right. Cool. And I
Okay.
can hear you fine. All right. So,
So, going back to shitting on your stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's can you hear me? You're the one that needs to hear me when I'm talking about shitting on your stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Loud and clear in more than one way, sir.
how's your week been?
Oh, just dandy. The weather. Everyone loves to hear somebody talk about the
You brought
weather.
some blanket over here.
Yeah.
Are you covering up with that during the
I will intermittently be covering up with this blanket. Yes, sir. Because I'm a big baby. Baby likes to be swaddled. I don't want to cover up the awesome Futurama shirt at all, though. Um,
from your collection of 90s shirts? Just out of curiosity, how many of those do you have?
somewhere around 75 or 80
Are you t-shirts?
t-shirts,
Just from the 90s?
just 90s related t-shirts.
Okay,
Yes.
here's another question. How many t-shirts do you have at all?
Three or 400 probably.
Really?
Yeah.
T-shirts?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to go back to the 90s when it all started, anytime I got 20 bucks in my pocket, it was let's go to the Appleton Mall and either buy CDs, t-shirts, or posters. That was it.
Oh, Diley let us know we were live when I was fucking around with camera shit.
Very nice. Hello, Diley. We will make triple sure to forget you again this week.
Hey, okay, do you want to try this? Do you want to try this theme song like right now to see if this thing actually works?
If it works, it'll be the first time it's been played live, right?
Yeah. It has
The
never.
first time it's been played live and it's gone through without getting lost in the Bermuda Triangle.
This one's definitely going through OBS.
Okay,
So
let's do it.
the thing is, you're not going to be. Can you can you hear it at all?
No, if it's playing right now, no.
No, 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 no. I mean, you'll be able to hear it a little bit through the computer. So if you got some cool intro queued up, you gotta let it rip. All right, here we go. Ready?
Welcome to Mindful 90s, the podcast that just hits different. Kind of like Tanya Harding.
Ooh, baby, 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 shake your big, big booty now.
I wonder what Tanya Harding's big booty looks like these days. Speaking of Tanya Harding, I'm bringing her in next week.
You're bringing her in next week, you say. We talking a blow up doll that you've put ice skates on?
When this thing blows up and becomes super famous, Tanya Harding's going to be like in the studio. Like I want to hear all about how she took that bitch out. Um, uh, Tanya Harding got like a TV show out of that. What did Nancy Drew, whatever the hell her name was, what did she whatever became of that anyway? Like what happened to her?
She got to host SNL, and it was a pretty good episode, despite her, I would say.
Back in the 90s though, right?
Right.
It wasn't like recent.
Yeah. Does Tanya Harding now have more relevancy than Nancy Kerrigan now? Yes.
Yeah, I think so. See, back in the 90s, Nancy Kerrigan got all of that sympathy publicity. That
Hold-
was it.
Hold on.
Everybody felt sorry for her.
The intro song worked so well it drowned your ass out. Ha ha. Hashtag Corey Tech Skills.
Yep.
Technical skills.
Hey,
Skills.
it worked. All I heard was that the intro song played for the first time ever live. That's all I heard. Like anything that came after that, just like blah blah blah. Who cares?
Well then,
It worked.
Well, then, for reference, the audience should probably know that during the theme song, I said, "Welcome to Mindful '90s, the podcast that hits just a little different."
No,
like Tanya
wait.
Harding.
Do it again. Do it again. Hold on. Here we go.
Welcome to Mindful '90s, the podcast that just hits a little different, like Tanya Harding.
And I think we sound louder than the intro now. I think that one should have worked. That one should be fine.
We'll find out. There's a whole lot of "we'll find out" going on with this podcast. Hey, this is still the third episode. Um, it's fun. It's fun. We're learning stuff.
You're going to learn a lot about Tanya Harding next week, by the way. I'm bringing in all kinds of shit. It's going to be great.
Okay. I do want to see that movie where she is portrayed. Oh crap! Now I can't remember the
One that
actress's-
Netflix did,
Yeah, like 5 years ago. 4
I
years ago?
Tanya.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I Tanya.
That was a great movie.
I should maybe, if you're going to be talking about that, I should maybe watch it before next Wednesday. Um, and you should maybe, if I can dupe you into this, watch Too Funny to Fail. It's a 95-minute documentary about the Dana Carvey show. Then you'll know more about what I'm going to be talking
What's that
about.
on? I'll watch it.
I'll get back to you on that. I don't remember what
Is it on a streaming network?
should be.
Where did you see it?
I saw it. My friend had it, and
Okay.
I don't remember.
So maybe I just have to pirate it. Whatever.
I mean,
We do not endorse that on YouTube.
pirating. What's that?
Yeah, that's awful. Don't do that. Always pay exorbitant amounts of money for subscribe to YouTube. YouTube TV. Give them money. Don't pirate anything.
You wouldn't just blah blah blah, would you? That meme has been making the rounds again.
You wouldn't just steal a car. What download a car? Is that what they said? Is that what they said in the thing? The thing is, there's 3D fucking printing now. You can download all the cars you want. Whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Fucking Christ.
Anyways, your original question: what have I been up to in the last week? Just trying to survive. It's been single digits, right around 0 degrees, honestly, for about the last week. And this time of year, it makes the gears in my head turn even worse than they normally do, which is really saying something.
You don't got a lot. You don't have enough blankets in your apartment to snuggle up in, or what? Are all the blankets here?
Oh, something like that. Yeah, I could probably use more blankets. I could probably stand to have my landlords install better windows that aren't so drafty. Anyways, but that's neither here nor there, I guess.
I just let my hair down when it gets this cold out, and I dream about going to war against the neighboring towns in like 3 feet of snow.
Who would you say is Stevens Point's Shelbyville? Who is our nemesis?
Rosholt, maybe.
I would say Rapids. I feel like Rapids is our
Rapids?
enemy.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel
Like Stevens Point's just really liberal. And so any place that's full of like right wingers or rednecks, I feel like that would be their, I mean, not my nemesis. Like, I don't give a shit. I mean, if war ever broke out between Stevens Point and Rapids, I'd join Rapids anyway. Like, I don't even care.
the grossest thing I've ever heard you say.
I'll fight.
Oh.
I'll fight for the paper mills.
I got word that the second version of you playing our theme song sounded a lot better, more balanced. So
Nice.
whatever you did, we'll do that
So,
from
all
now
right.
on.
Did that also come with a hashtag Corey's Tech Skills? It
Uh,
better have.
it really doesn't matter, and I'm not going to
No,
look
it did.
because my
It,
fingers are
it
cold, and
should.
I would have to push buttons on my phone. So yeah, it doesn't matter.
Corey's
Uh,
Tech Skills. Hell
thanks,
yeah.
thanks again, B-boy Brian, for that theme song. We love you, buddy. What have you been up to for the last week?
Uh, Nothing.
what what can you do this time of year?
Yeah,
Uh,
there's literally nothing you can do.
the
I'm
holidays,
sitting inside and just fucking around.
right? Yeah, the holidays are over. You just kind of do projects and hunker down and wait for life to spring back to life.
Reading a lot of stuff about Tanya Harding. That's what I've been doing.
There you
Not
go.
a lot of stuff, but the more I learn about her, the more fascinated I am.
Heck yeah. Um, were there any like comments or anything like that that we wanted to address? Uh,
From last week?
yeah, I don't think there's anything in particular.
Well, Diley left a voicemail.
Okay, yeah, yes, he sure did. Should we do that now?
Okay. I put it on here, so
Okay.
well this one's from a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah,
Didn't
it's the one that we forgot to do last week.
okay.
I can relate to Andy's father figure story because my dad used to sit there and make me feel embarrassed over something that I happened to have done
Is that loud enough?
by clear
It
accident.
should be, yeah.
Wasn't anything with like articles of clothing,
So he's
though.
talking about your
It was
stepdad.
while I
And the
learned
Right.
how
boots.
to
Yeah,
drive.
okay.
I already had my license. I was driving my dad's pickup truck. It was snowy, and this particular road had snowdrifts on it, covering the entire road. The snowdrifts would push me off to the oncoming traffic side, so I would turn my vehicle and get back to that side of the road, which then a snowbank would push me over again. Well, suddenly I was sliding, going sideways down the road. I overcompensated by turning the wheel, which spun me around, and I ended up hitting a tree. It was only damage on a back quarter panel, but still, and I feared the wrath of my dad. Well, in any case, he ended up getting that fixed. It was like, I don't know, a couple months after that point of time. Once again,
Did
I
he
get
make
to
you pay
drive this
for it though?
vehicle. And there was an Amish guy who wanted me to take his trailer to his place. I get it to the guy's place. He wants it in some field or whatever. So I was able to get the trailer where he wanted
Should
it.
be fine driving
And
in a
in the
field.
process of coming out of this field, I ended up denting the same quarter panel. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die
In a field?
because I knew that
Some sort of
it just
fence
got
opening, I'm
fixed.
sure.
So anytime we'd have guests over, my dad would just sit there and be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I went and had this thing, but Nick knew better. He thought that this thing deserved this decoration, but I went and I fixed it, and then he put his decoration in again. Now I can't drive it without wearing a paper bag over my head. I already felt terrible about it, but then he just sits there and digs that dagger in even more
Yep.
every time. That's the best I have for the scenario that some form of making a person feel terrible over something they've already known is a bad situation.
Okay, so his dad's being kind of a bitch about the whole thing and being like, "Oh, I got to wear a paper bag on my head because of the thing." But how did you dent it again in a field? Like the first time you spun out, you hit a tree. I get that. I mean, I've done that before. I don't think I've ever hit anything in a field.
It had to have been some sort of fence opening with like a post or something like that. I'm not sure, but I was gonna say
That is kombucha.
I have to,
Diley, if you're in there, you better give an explanation, man, because
did you um
no, that's what it was. Like
no,
some
I
kind of
actually don't. I was just gonna say I think there's a special place in hell for these father figure types
well, it was his father,
who love to
actually.
take it was his actual father, but who love to take their kid's story of pain and disappointment and embarrassment and turned it into a theatrical piece and turned it into a stand-up comedy routine.
But it it builds character. Like everything
I
else,
wasn't
it
expecting you to
builds
say that.
character.
I wasn't expecting that. I actually somewhat agree with that.
Well, yeah, because it does. Like it teaches you to like know that you're stupid. Because that's a really important thing. Like everybody needs to know that. Everybody needs to know how fucking retarded they are, right? And we all had that drilled into our heads too when we were kids.
You know what really hit that point home with me was something that happened in the 90s. I rear-ended my own school bus. Um, I don't think I will ever live that down. There are people watching this right now chuckling about it already just because they're like, "You hit your own bus? How did you do that?"
Wait, with a car?
Yeah, with a car
Well,
on a school day.
the bus was in the way though.
I will probably, man, I should have brought that in this month because it happened right around this time, mid-January. I guess I'll have to save it for next year.
Oh, here, I got one for you. You want to hear something really dumb? This is for Diley and all of the other losers out there who got ripped on by their dads endlessly. Here's my super dumb thing. Like spinning out and hitting a tree, that's not that dumb. That's whatever that happens to everybody if you live in Wisconsin. The one time that I crashed my car was on a perfectly clear and sunny day. That was the only time I've driven in the worst weather imaginable, and I've spun out and I've always caught my spin outs. I've never hit anything. The one time that I actually wrecked a car really good was on the middle of the day, bright sunny day. I had the whole road to myself. I was on a highway and I must have been like 18 years old. And I don't know what happened, but I spaced out and flew into the ditch. I flew into a ditch, out of a ditch, through a cornfield, and basically got my car wedged in a ditch, like laying across the ditch with the front bumper on one end of the ditch and the back end bumper on the other end of the ditch,
Oh,
and
really?
all four tires off the ground. Yeah.
How,
That
how'd you get unlodged from that?
well, I had to get a tow truck and get it like taken out. Imagine the lie
Wouldn't
I
ha-
had to construct for my dad to cover for that dumb shit. Like what Diley did with the quarter panel. Okay, maybe not in the field, but the first time, completely acceptable. I get it.
Yeah.
What do you say when it's a perfectly clear sunny day and there's literally no possible way you can get into a car accident?
I don't know how the tow truck could have gotten you out of being stuck in that particular kind of way without maybe damaging one of the bumpers, unless they kind of
No, it
had a way to claw machine you out of there.
well, the tow line it does lift up.
Oh,
So basically it lifted up the car and then just like pulled it.
wouldn't that put more pressure on the other bumper into the? Well, no, not okay. No, okay. I can see how it works.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
I got it.
but
I got
it
you.
was all fucked up. Like I completely fucked up the radiator and everything. Like it was pretty trashed after
Man,
that.
I mean, some days when it's not winter, but like it just rained out, pe- the way it's been explained to me is like it'll bring out some of the oil and the grease from the pavement. And especially if it's not too much rain, if it's just a little rain, it'll create a slickness that is slippery enough to actually slide on. But yeah, if it was just a bright, sunshiny day with no rain whatsoever,
Yeah, I have no excuse.
I
Like believe me, I wish it was raining. I wish there was anything that happened.
well, if anybody
I
ever
wish there was a pebble on the ground that I could blame. There was literally nothing.
a banana peel, yeah. If anybody ever brings this up in the future and they start ripping on you, I'm going to come to your defense. I'm going to say, I know what happened. Corey was listening to the radio and Nirvana came on, and he was so mesmerized by the richness of the sound that he was hearing
Here's the other thing.
and the depth of the lyrics.
Back in the 90s, I was stoned all the time. I drove stoned all the time and never ever ever got into an accident. I've driven from Wausau to Point tripping balls on acid. Um,
And you get to point, you don't remember how you got there.
well, no, you remember.
Oh.
Well, you remember you had a fun car ride, but I was sober too. That makes it even worse. Like I was completely sober. No weed, no nothing. But after that accident, I learned a very important lesson. Never get behind the wheel without smoking first.
Uh, take that for what it's worth, listeners. Yeah. Um, I've never smoked and drove, so I don't have anything to say.
I've done all the drugs and driven before.
Um,
And the only time I've ever gotten into an accident is when I was sober. So I don't know. All those PSAs that the government puts out all the time. Mm, how much can you trust them?
they're probably all bullshit. Uh, who went first last week?
You can go first this week because you were going to do the screen thing. You finished off the last episode talking about screen time. How you thought screen time
I I
or
I think I want to do that one second though, but would that mess things up if I did that topic second?
well because I was going to talk about it too. I was going to piggyback off of both of your topics this week.
Okay. All right. Well then I'll start with the other topic.
Okay.
Um,
What are you talking about? The Matrix?
yeah. I was gonna say, I guess I'll start out by asking you a question. What are we doing here?
Podcasting. What are we doing where?
Whoa. I I don't know. Yeah, my first topic is The Matrix was special to me because I likewise spent a lot of the 90s and a lot of my life trying to be the one, quote unquote, like some version, some semblance of feeling like I was achieving something special. And when The Matrix came out, I
Did
just kind of identified with it extra because of that. I'm like, I've always wanted to like be what he's doing.
Did Bob ever think you were the one? Did he ever get an inkling that maybe you were like Neo?
I think Bob thought that I was one grade A schmuck, and the feeling was mutual for sure. Um, no, Bob didn't even think I was capable of putting ketchup on a hot dog. That's a story for another time too. I think I'm going to tell that story when I also tell the story about how I pretty much drowned and died and came back to life. Um, that
So
was
that
interesting.
so th-
That
Bob is just a reoccurring theme.
hap- yeah,
Bob is going to be a reoccurring theme.
I think Bob is. What's that guy Cipher? Who is happy to just like uh, eat crap and be told that it's tender steak, delicious juicy steak because the Matrix tells him that it is.
Um,
I think that's I
the
think that's
guy
Bob.
that like that betrayed him or whatever.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, okay. I It's been so long since I've seen it. That wasn't in the Matrix though, was it? Wasn't that in the second one?
first one.
Okay,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't remember.
Um,
Anyway, I'm derailing you here. So you want to be the one?
so I have to go off my notes here. I'm gonna try not to like read them, but like, dude, like I said, this time of year, my the gears in my brain just move slower because they're frozen completely. So I need to reference my notes to kind of at least get me going. Uh, I grew up with like my mom and grandma always telling me like, "Oh, you have to kind of do better and be better than everybody else in the family." And it was this weird thing that I always knew it kind of affected me somewhat.
Wait,
Uh,
that they did?
yeah,
They said you had to
absolutely.
like be the one
Yeah,
to
no,
save the family.
seriously, in their own weird way, they were telling me I had to be the one to save the matrix of my family, I suppose. Yeah, like don't screw up, don't give in to peer pressure, get good grades and finish high school and all that stuff. Don't be stinky. um, and as I grew up, I wasn't sure how to begin the process of being better because living in the middle of nowhere in Amherst, you have no resources, you have no mentors, you have fucking nothing. So, uh, but then I would watch shows and movies in the 90s that sometimes would suggest maybe the best resource and the only resource you really need is inside of you. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I was a sucker who actually subscribed to that stuff.
Yeah, that was a big theme in the 90s.
Was the hero is inside of
Oh,
you?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um.
But I I kind of never really thought much of it. I
Every day
kind of
you
thought it
looked in
was
the
bullshit.
every day you looked in the mirror, you're like, nah, that ain't it, Chief. That ain't where the hero is. So, um, The Matrix is a big example of one of those things from the 90s that made me say, oh, maybe if I want to be the one, be awesome, I just need to look inside myself and harness the power of my own like thinking and stuff. So The Matrix came out in 98.
Yeah, but wasn't The Matrix about looking outside of yourself and outside of reality and outside of all of that?
It depends on
Wasn't the whole point of it that everything around you is a lie,
how you interpret
including yourself?
it. I thought one of the messages was like what you believe within yourself is the only thing that is real. I don't know. I'm heavily focused on the love, the romance dynamic between Trinity and Neo. Like it took her believing in her uh well no, actually it was the Oracle telling her that she would fall in love with the one, and Neo was the one and she loved him, so that had to be it. Hmm. Well, now I'm confusing myself, but I'm sure there's some way you could spin it to where uh, uh, was that you're you're fucking with me here. Was that the Matrix? Was that the real message of the first Matrix? Is that everything you've ever known is a lie?
Yeah, kind of. Wasn't it?
I mean,
The whole thing with the pills was you can take the red pill and
and I get that,
I'll show you how far the rabbit hole goes or whatever he says, whatever that line is. And or you can take the blue pill and just go back to everything that's fake.
but the decision for which pill he took still came from himself. Why did he make that decision?
Oh, I don't know.
Right. There's something in there.
I mean, but most people, I would say most people would not make that decision. Most people would be way too scared to make that decision
He, and you know what?
because of their love of everything fake in the Matrix.
And I wanted to defy that at the time the movie came out. And now I'm kind of more apt to say, well, it is what it is. People like what they like. Um, but yeah,
Oh, I mean, finish your point.
it's
Finish it because
no. Now I'm trying to differentiate between like what are the different versions of listening to yourself, listening to the voice inside of you. I mean, there's autonomy, but then there's also agency, and agency is just like okay, yeah. Now I'm confusing myself even more. This episode
you're
next
you're getting too philosophical for a movie like The Matrix.
that's not possible, sir. The Matrix is the epitome of philosophy. By the way,
So I'm going to get into that.
next week I plan on bringing in light and breezy topics. I'm not going to say what.
Put The Matrix. Why'd you want to bring in this one anyway?
Um,
Like just because you wanted to be the one or what?
I think I
Like for the record, I wasn't even going to bring in the topics I brought in, but I just thought it would be fun to like piggyback off your topics for once.
something inspired me to bring in screen time, and then screen time inspired me to bring in Matrix stuff because I thought that they would overlap a little bit. I forget it.
Yeah, they kind of do because
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about that.
So, anyways, The Matrix 1 came out in 98. Had to have been 98 when I was
98 or 99.
16 years old. And when you're that age, especially in the late 90s, there's a certain degree of worrying about how cool you look to other people. And I cared, but I also didn't care at the same time, which was kind of weird. I certainly didn't care enough to go out and buy one of those Matrix jackets. You know what I mean? Like, did you have friends in 98 who went out and bought
Oh, the trench
a
coats?
leather duster
Oh, yeah,
or
yeah, sure.
even a non-leather
Yeah,
duster
yeah.
just because they're like, well, now that's the standard of cool. I have to spend money I don't have on one of those fucking cool jackets.
I knew people who did. Yeah.
I would
I
say,
didn't have any close friends that did that.
yeah, I would say in my closest group of friends, more than 50% of them went out and bought one of those jackets. And
50%?
yeah, dude, if my close, if what I consider
So
my
you
close,
went from living with your grandma and your mom all the time to hanging out with people who bought leather matrix dusters? I feel like that's not too far removed from each other. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you were just kind of like leaving one bad situation and going into another.
um, my friends were funny and they were explorers just like me. None of us knew what we were
Just like
doing.
Neo.
Well, I don't know. Are you really going to sit there and claim that the one wouldn't know what he's doing? Maybe the one knows what he's doing. Just
Don't you
has.
think they all thought they were the one though?
That's a fucking good question.
Like how many people who
Who
watched that
else?
movie probably wanted to just be the one, and that's what they found intriguing about the movie? Because that's not at all what I got out of the movie. I'll talk about like what I got out of it.
Maybe you're not as egotistical as me. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yes, I'm very humble. I'm possibly the most humble person you've ever met.
I mentioned the romantic thing, the protagonist Neo, and then Trinity, and her being like, uh, you're the one because I love you, and Oracle said I would love the one. That poisoned my brain. It made me be like, uh, that's what I need. That's what I want. All I want in this whole world is to have a story like that. And this is in addition to movies like Can't Hardly Wait, where they lead us to believe that this nerd is going to get Jennifer Love Hewitt in the end,
Yeah,
which
that's all just shitty, like fantastical writing.
why
Like none of that's real.
why did I believe that I could pull it off?
Who says you can't though? I mean, there's a lot of you can get like hot horrors. Like there's no I don't know.
Uh,
Maybe you can't get them in America, but you can go to like Russia or I don't
I,
know, Czechoslovakia or something.
I did not fully utilize my Navy days as far as what you're talking
Yeah,
about
you
is
really didn't
concerned.
because there's hot horrors everywhere. And
Yeah.
like just being an American, you can get a lot. You can get like any of them.
When I was in the Navy, I think I thought Trinity was back home waiting for me, and she would be sad if she found out that I was banging Russian whores overseas. You know, uh,
Anybody who's going to be sad that you're banging Russian whores overseas is just not the girl for you anyway. Like that's red flags
she is not the one for the one.
for sure.
That's
For
yeah.
sure.
Um,
Anyway,
I guess
just keep sidetracking
that's
your
all.
train of thought.
I guess as far as that goes, like the way that I subscribe to those romantic, what did you call them? Fantastical garbage ideals or
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever I said.
Um, I I feel like that was almost like my version of a reality show, like the way women in their 40s and 50s ooh and ah over the Bachelor and the Bachelorette and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Like, and they put themselves and mentally and emotionally they put themselves in those positions. That's what people do, right? TV is an escape. Movies are an escape.
That's what women do.
Come on.
That's what women do, though.
I'm going to make a note of that. I'm going to press you later on whether or not there were any shows or movies that you ever just lost yourself in.
Yeah, like Sons of Anarchy and the one with Walter White, whatever,
Oh, Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad, like shows like that. Absolutely.
Which Sons of Anarchy character did you identify with, or did you put yourself in the place of?
Gemma.
No.
Kind of, yeah. Like I understood the perspective that she was coming from a lot of times, and like a lot of the decisions that she made throughout the show.
So you're sitting
I,
here making.
I'm not saying that she was like my favorite character or anything. I'm saying I could definitely identify with her.
I just think it's funny. You're kind of giving me the third degree for being a woman about the way that I identify with movie characters, but the the one chick on
Who
Sons
had
of
an
Anarchy.
awesome role in an awesome show. She's like wondering how she's going to protect her family from like rival drug gangs. She's not watching the fucking Bachelor. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a difference there, a little bit of a difference.
And like 80% of what she said were lies.
Oh yeah, she was a brutal, ruthless liar, absolutely. But her character was so interesting though too at the same time.
Katie Seagal is awesome. We'll have to bring her in at some point as
I
being.
liked a lot of the characters on the show,
Yeah.
but they were usually like the secondary, like they weren't the main characters. Like it wasn't Jax. Like I didn't identify with him, even though he was like the Neo of the show.
Oh, right. I mean, for me, it was kind of a toss up between
I
Jax.
actually didn't even like him that much.
Yeah, for me, it was Jax sometimes, but a lot of Unser. Like the police chief.
Sure.
Yeah, I identified with him like a whole lot. Um, take that for what it's worth. But anyways, um, I like the idea that having control of your own faculties via a combination of believing in something meaningful and having a sense of logic that was super computer esque. and I really like the idea that it could give you so much control over your faculties that you become basically invincible. That's what I wrote down as my notes. Now, what did I mean by that? Like, isn't that kind of what Neo did? Like, he what was the point that he reached towards the end of the movie when he was like able to stop the bullets with his hand and just pick them out of the sky and drop them and dodge every single one of the agent's kung fu moves? What did he do? Was it
He just was able to manipulate the Matrix.
and
Was
and
to
it,
manipulate the logic of the Matrix in such a way that the Matrix couldn't touch him.
and the reason that happened was because Trinity told him she loved him and then kissed him when the real him was hooked up to the machine with the thing in the back of his head. Is that how that happened?
I don't remember. It's been a long time.
Something, yeah. So, man,
It all turned into a love story. I don't remember that part. Is that really what happened? It just kind of turned into a love story?
yeah, yeah. Don't they
All
all?
right.
I mean, that's why it made money at the end of the day, probably. Uh, Honestly, on a subconscious level, stuff like the Matrix, making me believe in myself, helped helped to get me ready for the Navy and boot camp. For as ridiculous as it is for me to subscribe to that fantastical garbage ideals writing, sometimes it helps to fool you in a good way, and you fake it till you make it, and you end up. I mean, going into boot camp, I felt like a chicken with my head cut off, and I'm like, how am I going to make it through this? I am a weak guy. I am not boot camp material. I just had to kind of keep convincing myself that of course I'll make it. I'm the one. That kind of train of thought, which is ridiculous, but it worked. I made it through, and I'm pretty sure most people who knew me didn't think I would make it through boot camp, if I'm being totally honest. I've never said that before. Um, so anyways, I guess cuz I don't want to run too long with this. I guess the point I'm getting at is uh The Matrix was the greatest love story of our time, and I love it the way tweens loved Twilight 10 years ago. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah. I
I don't
also,
even know if I'm kidding right now.
but I loved The Matrix too when it came out. Um, so back in the 90s, as I alluded to earlier,
Are you officially starting your topic number one?
sure,
Which is okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I can if you're done.
I'm down.
I was just going to say the first time I saw that movie, like I saw every movie back in the 90s, was really high. And so I think that helped to kind of solidify how crazy of an idea that it was. But it wasn't just The Matrix. Like back in the late 90s, if you remember, there were like a whole slew of movies that came out back then that were all uh, something's wrong with reality in a certain way, or that there's something more within the reality that you don't know is happening.
What was that one with Jennifer Lopez? Was that The Cell? That one was pretty neat.
I hated it. I saw it in the theater.
It was incomplete. There was so much more potential to do more.
Yeah, there
The
was, but
seeds were there. The seeds of awesomeness were there, but yeah, it's just fell flat ultimately.
yeah, it was just a pretty typical Hollywood movie. It wasn't. I don't know. I didn't
If they could
think
have
that
made
was particularly interesting.
if they could have made that a 4-hour movie, it would have kicked ass.
I don't know.
That's
I think 90 minutes was plenty long enough. But
anyway, sorry.
the movies that I thought were good at the time were The 13th Floor, which was another one of those sci-fi uh alternate reality movies.
Yeah.
What else was there that came out back then? Dark City was another one. I don't know if you ever saw that,
No,
but
Dirk was a big fan of Dark City. That I remember.
that was a great movie. So there was a whole slew of them that came out back then. What it did for me was didn't give me the sense of being the one so much as give me a sense that, hey, maybe not everything is the way it's supposed to be. Maybe there's more to it behind the veil than anybody knows. What I ended up doing in my early 20s, probably, I don't know, for the next maybe until I was like 30-ish or something, I studied a lot of philosophy and religion, theology. And I think those movies probably played a role in that. That's probably what set me on the course to looking into all this stuff because I was genuinely curious. Uh, I had eaten enough mushrooms and taken enough acid that when you do that, you kind of get a little bit of a glimpse behind the veil. You can't articulate it, but you can see there's something more going on behind the scenes. So that whole idea always intrigued me. The Matrix was one of the few movies that did a really good job of kind of taking this all and putting it together for uh, average dumb Americans so they could kind of get the same idea. But as I was thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, it not necessarily doesn't have to be this idea where everybody's hooked up to a machine. Most people, I would say like 90% of people, myself included, you included, everybody, with the exception of a tiny, tiny fraction of people, and I don't even know if that's true. I'm just guessing it probably is. But I think everybody is just kind of stuck in the matrix in some form or another. Uh, whether that's how uh, how we're enslaved by our circumstances, our own ways of thinking, our health, whatever it is.
It, I've actually been thinking a lot lately about the concept of feedback loops in our own psychology, something that you just keep doing for the sake of doing it. And somewhere along the lines, you decided that you should do it just because you should, and you can't really remember why anymore. That actually reminds me of one of my favorite quotes of all time is from Sons of Anarchy. When Clay says, "Do you ever get to a point where you're realizing you're chasing after shit that you don't even want anymore?" Dude, when Clay said that, it floored me because I'm like, "Oh shit, yeah, I think it me. I think I do that
No,
way too
I
much."
think everybody does that. I think everybody
Everybody has
grows
something,
up absolutely conditioned, programmed, so to speak, like any computer
an
running some
an
base
imprint.
program.
Some imprint goes haywire in someone's brain.
And you can either but the thing is you have the capacity to break out of it. You're not doomed to that forever and ever. You have the capacity to break out of it. Does anybody have the capacity within themselves? Now, this kind of comes back to what you were saying. Does anybody have the capacity within themselves to break out of it? I don't know. I wonder if it's not, if it doesn't always take somebody coming along and saying, no, you don't have to live like this. There's another way of doing it. And then that opens up your mind to the possibility of not having to live in a feedback loop.
I think the feedback loop is the wormhole that takes you to the matrix. That's the way I would put it.
Sure, maybe. Um,
I don't know why I had to say that.
in all of the philosophical stuff that, I used to read, the allegory of the cave, that is a perfect that's a
Yeah.
perfect counterpart to the matrix, to this idea that what you're seeing in front of you is actually this other thing that's happening that you have no idea.
The Wachowskis were just ripping off Plato. I knew it
Yeah, pretty much. They were just doing it in a more modern way.
in a higher budget way. Yeah.
So that's always intrigued me. Or one of the things that I read, actually, one of the most profound things that absolutely made me give up entirely on philosophy ultimately, because there's no answers there. Okay. Anybody who thinks that philosophy is the be all end all, no. What it can do is it can teach you how to think and how to look at things from a different point of view. What it absolutely does not ever present is any kind of truth. None whatsoever.
You
Ironically,
said that absolutely as if it's the truth.
I did. Ironically, I learned that from a Christian philosopher. Now, you would think that this guy, and no, this guy does believe in some kind of absolute truth. He believes in a God and he believes in all this stuff. The guy's name was Cornelius Van Til, and what he taught was that everything you think you know about everything is all premised upon some assumption that you will never, ever, ever, ever be able to prove. And that's true about everything. And it doesn't matter how logical or rational something is, it is always premised upon something that there is no basis. Faith. You have to take it on faith, just like this guy believes in a God that he takes on faith. You have to take it on faith that your rational mind is not deceiving you in some way. Oh, the other thing about the Matrix too that occurred to me was um, Descartes. He was the first guy who basically talked about the Matrix, wasn't he? The I think therefore I am guy. Now, what Descartes did, and I th- think I think I read him. Must have been quite a few years after the Matrix, and I don't think at the time I even thought of this, but in the scope of knowing I was going to talk about the Matrix, this popped up. His whole philosophy was, how do I know anything at all? He's asking kind of the same questions Cornelius Van Til asked, or any philosopher. How do I know anything? How do I know that everything isn't just being pumped into my brain by some kind of evil demon who wants me to think a certain way, like the machines in the Matrix? Descartes literally wrote the Matrix with his philosophy. He says, how do I know that some evil demon isn't deceiving me with everything? Well, his conclusion was, if a demon is trying to deceive me, then I must exist for it to try to deceive me.
I remember that now.
And
Yeah.
that's where it all came, I think therefore I am. That's where that whole idea comes from, is that philosophy.
I remember that from philosophy classes now, the demon part. That rang a bell.
So anyway, all of this shit, all this philosophical shit that I ended up reading and learning about later on, I think all stemmed from The Matrix and other movies like that. Just the idea that there's some kind of reality behind reality. But the other thing I thought about too was just the scene with the red and blue pills. How many people do you think would actually take the red pill? Like, how many people do you think would be brave enough to be open to the idea that everything they learned was an absolute lie? I don't think there's a lot of people out there willing to do that. And the reason I don't think so is because people people aren't willing to accept that they could possibly be wrong about the price of a quarter pounder at McDonald's. People will argue relentlessly about that on social media. Most people would never ever take the red pill. I think that's my theory anyway.
I think I'm with you on that. I think if you would have asked me that question 25 years ago, I would have said few. Few people would want to take the red pill. My answer, and then my answer would have gradually over time devolved into fewer and fewer and fewer.
Or if you there's enough stuff out there to show anybody who wants to learn that the way you do things or the way you think about things is absolutely dumb. And most people will not even take that red pill. Most people will not even consider, uh, like something I argue with people all the time about is just whether or not we need a government, right?
Right.
I'm an anarchist. I don't believe it's necessary. I think it's a fraud. It's a fraudulent institution. Doesn't need to exist. Nobody even wants to consider that possibility. I shouldn't say nobody, but very few people even want to consider that possibility. And that seems like such a dumb, dumb thing. That doesn't really have any bearing on whether or not you have to get up and go to work tomorrow, right? Whether or not you believe government should or shouldn't exist. It's just a dumb thing. But people don't even want to entertain the possibility that that's even something.
Do you remember the Dilbert cartoon show from the 90s that
I,
was on UPN? It
No.
lasted like 1 or 2 seasons.
I remember the comic.
I I don't remember many moments from it, but there was a scene where he was trying to go to work, but his driveway was being blocked by the garbage truck. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm collecting your garbage." And he's like, "But I'm trying to go to work and you're in my way." And he said, "You're in your own way." And he said, "You're right." I'm like, that was the dumbest thing ever, but I can't say he's wrong. I can't say they're wrong.
One of the ways that you break out of the matrix is by being able to admit when you're wrong about something. I think that's, for whatever reason, that is super hard for people to do. And
Well, I guess the thing I want to say next is something I will be saying as a reoccurring idea on this podcast. I think technology and the powers that be, George Carlin frequently refers to them as the people who own us. The people who run this who really run this country. I think at every single turn, they are conditioning us to think that our egos are always totally justified. That way we keep being freaks and we keep fighting with each other over our values. Because as long as we think our own values are the best, we're going to keep fighting with somebody who thinks that their differing values are the best. If we keep fighting the class war, or if we keep fighting the culture war, we can't fight the class war. That's how that goes. So that's how they stay steps ahead of us and keep controlling us. Is they enable us to maintain our egos and possibly even more importantly always seek comfort as if it's like the most important thing, as if you see somebody whose values are not to prioritize comfort above everything, there must be something wrong with them. How could they not see that that's the point? And once again, I'll reference Cypher being like, as long as I can eat this, as long as the Matrix is telling me I'm eating delicious steak, then ignorance is bliss, and I don't care. That's Cypher is that guy who wouldn't take the red pill, who would obviously never take the red pill. And what you're saying is very few people would. And yeah, I think most people are generally
Yeah, but
Cyphers.
he took the red pill though? Like he knew what was on the other side.
Wait, did he?
I think so. I don't know. It's been a while. But I guess the only other couple of points I wanted to make was we're kind of already there. We live in a world where algorithms.
Oh, everybody who was on Morpheus's team
Yeah,
was there because they took the red pill.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Well,
But so he saw reality for what it was and he just went back and said, fuck it. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either, though. When you just look at something like that and you're just like, ah, well, fuck
so
this.
yeah, seeing reality for what it was and then wanting to ignore it versus wanting to ignore the ability to find out what it means in the first place, kind of the same thing, kind of not the same
But
thing.
I mean, that's what everybody does anyway.
Yeah.
Like, death is a specter that looms over everybody. At some point, all of us are just going to be dead. And what can anybody do about that?
How I long for death's sweet embrace, Lunch Lady Doris. I wanted to say, were you going to say more about the Matrix? Or
Well,
can you
just
move on?
that
Go ahead.
everything that we do, pretty much everything that we live under is generated and run by an algorithm somewhere. And increasingly, society is getting to be more and more that way. So it's not like
But what do the algorithms do? I think what the algorithms are doing is
they
this:
serve themselves. The algorithms serve themselves ultimately.
the algorithms get the powerful ones to get us to serve them. That's how they serve themselves. It's by getting the masses to think, to do that.
The other thing about the Matrix is that there's people who believe that we actually live in a computer simulation, that we are currently living, and not based on any movie or anything. Like, this is reality. Like, what we see in the Matrix is reality. We are all just computer scripts running in an ultimate computer program somewhere.
The singularity already happened.
Tech billionaires like Sam Altman, Elon Musk are pouring billions of dollars into trying to find a way to escape the Matrix somehow. We don't really know how that's possible, and get to what they call baseline reality, which is outside of the computer simulation that we're running in. Elon Musk says that he started to believe that we were in a matrix when he realized that given how simulation technology, computer simulated technology, is advancing so fast right now, that it's going to be a matter of time before we're going to be able to experience reality in a computer simulation with no discernible difference from how we experience reality right now. And so the question is, how do we know this hasn't already been done? Like, how do we know that we're not already there? That we've just been here for, like, we reached this point and now we're just living it out like this.
Well,
There's no reason to think that we're not.
the fact that I haven't found my Trinity yet would actually give credence to that idea. Like that must be it.
But
We
you haven't
must-
broken out of the matrix. You haven't earned your Trinity yet. You're still living in the matrix.
No, that yeah. I think that's what I'm saying. I'm stuck in the matrix and that's why I haven't found it.
Everybody's stuck in the
Yeah.
matrix.
Yeah, that's
So they're trying to figure out a way to break out. It's wild. It's some wild stuff. You can get pretty deep into not just like the movie lore, but there are movements out there of people who are literally trying to find the other side of reality. I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's a noble cause. I mean, why not? I mean, you can jerk off to your simulated porn like most people are going to do, or you can put all your time and effort into trying to find the
Crack the code.
yeah.
You know what my biggest issue is as I'm stuck here in the Matrix looking for my Trinity? Every time I think I've found her, she's not interested in me. You want to know why? Because she'd rather be with some guy with a fucking long Matrix jacket. That's it. She just wants some guy with a cool leather duster. She doesn't want some guy like me who's trying to talk about
Who's wrapped in a blanket trying to talk philosophy. What?
something
It's
like that.
weird.
Yeah. No, yeah, it is for
Yeah,
sure.
why?
This this Matrix is this Matrix is bullshit, man. Um so I think that's pretty much all I got for that. What would you said what keeps people in the Matrix is that they have some sort of what did you say, a habit or a thing or a vice that they keep doing and it's their fatal flaw. How did you put it?
Yeah, but
I was going to
but
ask
it's
you
a lot
what's
of things. It's a lot of things. It's just the way you think about something, or it could be something as simple as if you could tell somebody
anything that you deem truth, but you can't prove that it's truth, but you tell yourself it is anyways. That's what keeps you in the Matrix.
in America, we dump so much processed foods into our bodies on a daily basis.
Most of it is me.
But how does that not affect your brain, though? Also, I mean, is that not part of just existing in this feedback loop of fear and anxiety and always having to fight and argue with everybody around you? How much of that is just the poison that we're constantly consuming? I mean, but at the same time, if you tell somebody, if you're like, if you stop eating poison all the time, your mind will clear up. You'll be able to think cleaner and clearer than you've ever thought before. And people will just tell you to fuck off. They don't care. Give me the bag of Doritos. Like, it doesn't matter.
So vices and bad habits are what keep us in the Matrix.
Sure.
Stubbornness is what maintains the vices and the bad habits. Ego is what makes us think it's okay to be stubborn. Not asking enough
And in
questions.
the end, they all fucking die. So what? That's the thing that shocks me. We're all fucking dead at the end of the day. Like, why would you not want to pursue
But that's
something as interesting as the truth? That's
that-
what I don't understand.
that's the great mystery, dare I say the great paradox, is that none of us mortal humans actually know what happens when we die. I wonder all the time if I've died in my sleep many times, but just keep entering different pivots of reality, an alternate reality where I didn't die that time. And I managed to wake up
That's
another day.
that's what the Matrix is all about.
Yeah, kind of. That would explain the infinity wall of TVs in that one scene with the
That would explain the
architect,
Mandela effect. That would explain a lot of things.
that cat who like showed up when it wasn't supposed to, or whatever the hell that was.
Yeah, the glitch.
Yeah, the glitch, of course, the glitch in the Matrix. What was your favorite scene from the first Matrix movie? That's the last thing. I wanted to end this topic by actually bringing it back
Oh,
to the
I know
movie
what
in
it
the
is. I
90s.
know exactly what it is.
What?
I thought I was gonna have to just make up some bullshit, but no, I remember. Um, it was the scene when he was in the interrogation room and he he's having the back and forth with the
Agent?
agent, yeah. And the agent says something like tells him to shut up or you can't speak anymore or something like that. And the camera pans out and his mouth is all
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
closed. He's all freaking out because he can't talk anymore.
Yeah.
That was jarring. That was a
Nice.
jarring effect
Okay.
the first time that happened.
I thought that was pretty cool too. All I can just think of is Trinity looking hot and the spoon bending and for me the most jarring thing was the first
The spoon
time.
bending was in the second one.
Oh,
I'm
was it?
pretty sure.
Okay. Here's something that I noticed from the first one. The first scene where you see Keanu Reeves covered in the gelatinous placenta goop,
Mhm.
the that that's what made me be like, ugh, this is like definitely my least favorite part of the movie. But it stuck with me the most, so maybe it wasn't so bad.
That would have been my go-to. The scene where he wakes up in the thing and the robot comes up
Right.
and yeah.
It's weird, but it made me feel something uncomfortable that was probably necessary for me and for a lot of people who watched the movie.
But I feel like that's what breaking out of the matrix is. It's that level of discomfort and darkness. Because anytime you try to do anything that brings a measurable, better effect to your life in some way, whether it's trying to be smarter or trying to be more patient, like patience is my thing. Like I have no patience, like especially for just dumb bullshit, um, especially machine dumb bullshit. Um, but
Corey's
like
technical
it
wizardry.
it hurts to like actually have to just like swallow it down and try to
Maintain your
maintain
composure.
a baseline. Like it's actually painful to do that. Or if you want to get in shape, it's actually painful to work out every day and force yourself to do shit every day. It's painful to eat healthy. It's
Right.
painful to do any kind of or any kind of good habit at all. Develop any kind of good habit. It hurts to do that.
Now, would you say pain is the umbrella that stress would fall under, or is stress the umbrella that pain would fall under? Which one is the more overarching idea? Because I've been thinking about the stuff you just said a lot lately, but I think of it in terms of stress instead of pain. Not that it matters necessarily; it's just a pedantic thing. But I want to know.
It's not it's not stressful to me though. It is more painful than stressful. I don't get stress. I don't get stressed easily at all.
So maybe all stress is pain, but not all pain is stress because you experience pain that's not stress.
Yeah, I mean
I
I know
it's
what
just something.
stress is, but
It's just yeah, it's just something I think about. Well, do you want to pull up
to
the?
refuse a beer hurts. To not I have beer in my fridge right now that Rosalind had when she had her like Christmas party a couple weeks ago. There's beer still sitting in the fridge. I I'm going without drinking for a while. Hence the kombucha. But
Last week it was
it
alcohol-free
hurts.
hop water.
Oh yeah, hop water's so good too. But it hurts to not well, for the first couple of weeks it hurts. And then after that it's just like not a big deal anymore. And I think that's the way it is for most things.
I think the very last thought I want to say about the Matrix thing is I think every time you ask a question with the purposes of wanting to learn something, you get one more step away from being in the Matrix. I think we should all try to embrace asking more questions, trying to learn, trying to communicate, because asking those questions is what's going to keep you sharp enough to not be duped by the agents who want to keep you in the Matrix. It's
Most people don't want the answers to those questions though. I really don't think they do.
start small. Ask at least ask little questions. That's like not starting out working out right away, but at least starting out stretching before you start working out. I'm not saying should. I'm not saying everyone should ask questions. I'm saying if then. I'm saying if you ask questions, then it's probably going to get you closer to being the one and further from being stuck in the matrix. It's just an idea. Asking questions is good.
Sure.
Now pull up the chat and see if anybody is asking Shulky, "Are you a dumbass?" Because that would be pretty funny. It would actually be perfect. That's actually my rapper name. 50%.
Josh says I probably take both pills at the same time. Yeah, what would that do? Oh yeah, Gattaca. Gattaca was another one. Yeah, that one was pretty hard.
Yep, I remember.
Um, when Neo and Trinity go into that building to save Morpheus and they shoot the ever living shit out of the place, that was sweet.
That was pretty sweet.
It was a good action movie. Bullet time is like a thing now because of that movie.
The soundtrack of that movie was fucking kick ass too.
Yeah, it was all right.
Loved it.
Anyway,
Um,
screen time stuff.
Here's the part where I put on my old man pants and my sweater vest and start pounding my fist and rabbling. Back in my day, back in my day, um, my second, My second topic is that I feel, I believe, and I conclude that Y2K, now I'm not talking about the bug. If I say the phrase Y2K, I'm talking about the moment when the 90s ended and the new year, decade, century, and millennium began. Talking about that single moment, that change, that shift. I think when Y2K, I think Y2K serves as a very good reference, a very apt reference for a point in time where computer screen time became the new number one pastime for teenagers and young adults in our society, and probably other societies too, but at least our society. I think that's a good reference. I'm not saying exactly perfectly. I'm saying it's a really good reference for when it happened. I'm saying generally speaking, universally speaking, the 90s happened before that moment. During the 90s, especially the late 90s, I think that computer screen time was climbing up the list. It was getting more and more important, getting closer to number one. But I remember the very beginning of the year 2000, all I wanted to do with my spare time, all I wanted to do with my time at all was Google things because Google existed in 98 or whatever, but once it really caught on like wildfire, it was at the very beginning of the 2000s. It's like, oh, that debate that we used to have about which search engine was best, Hotbot, Excite, Yahoo, Dogpile, Webcrawler, the debate was done forever when Google came along and started answering everything within a fraction of a second. It's like, oh, game over. It's Google. I was Googling things all the time because I wanted answers. All I wanted to do was sit in front of a computer and Google things and download music off Napster and burn it onto CDs. That's it. So that way I would have something to listen to during the times when I couldn't be in front of a computer screen. That's how that went. If anybody agrees or disagrees with me, please chime in. Would you agree that 2000 is like the perfect reference point? Well, what am I really getting at here? What I'm really getting at is
Well, I mean,
the 90s was
computers
before that.
specifically or just screen time? I thought you were
Uh,
just kind of talking about screen time, but
oh no, I was talking about computer screen time. I was talking
okay.
about wanting to be in front of a computer, wanting to compute things, staring at a computer screen. I feel like 2000 is when that really took over. I feel like when the 90s ended was when we all became obsessed with either crawling inside of a computing device or being mad at it and wanting to evade it and wanting to complain about it all the time. It took over. It became the president of our souls.
So for me, it began a little earlier than that. Now, we had a computer. Our dad got a computer. Oh, God, it must have been like 90, 91, 92, maybe. I don't know. That was the first time that we had a computer in our home. And for me, I just used it for gaming. So before that, we had a Nintendo, we had Super Nintendos, my brother had a Genesis, and we did a lot of uh, video games on consoles. But when we got this computer, that was the first time that I started spending, like, I was addicted to it immediately, just for the games. We had this game called King's Quest V, and I was hooked on that. I played that constantly. And like, we had a Nintendo and like gaming systems, but all I wanted to do was be on the computer. That was the first time that I realized computers were better than everything else.
People.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Well, I mean,
For me in the late
you can't sit on, yeah, like we got kicked out of the house all the time. You know, we couldn't sit in front of the computer all the time. But that was the first time that I started doing like actual PC gaming. And they were all adventure games back then.
Did you ever play Chips Challenge?
No.
Oh, for me in the late 90s, it was Chips Challenge. It was an absolute obsession until I got to a level that I deemed impossible to beat, and then I just stopped playing.
It was a lot of adventure games. So
Yeah.
it was King's Quest V. It was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. There was Pirates. There was a bunch of them like that, but a lot of them were just like these point and click games. They weren't like platformers or anything else like that. You still had to do all that shit on a console. But this was the first time I realized that, hey, games on computers are way better. And that carried over into the when I moved out of the house.
The tweet you made today, computer graphics were way better in the
They were,
90s.
oh yeah, than console. And so from the late 90s until maybe like the mid to, well, maybe up to like 2010. No, I guess it was a little after that. So the last time I did any kind of computer gaming was The Witcher. I played The Witcher 1 and 2. Those were the last two computer games I played, only because they were compatible on my Mac, because by then I was already using a Mac. And that was it. But that was me first getting into computers. Like, it started a good decade before Y2K. So
I mean, I'm
the
not.
actual screen time, though, the actual screen time didn't really take off until, and we're talking computers, TVs, any kind of screen, which, by the way, like TVs were on in at least from what I remember, there was always TVs on in everybody's house every second of the day, from the moment they got up in the morning to the moment they went to bed. You go to a friend's house, there's like 3 TVs on. At our house, there was always a TV on. The TV was never off. It was always running as long as somebody was awake. Uh, that's what I remember. So I think I actually went back and looked this up and found that TV time back then, back in the 90s, averaged about 7 hours a day. And that was taking into account, like, not just the kids, but like the parents and everybody else. 7 hours of TV a fucking day. That is insane. I never spent 7 hours a day on any day in front of a computer. I think, like, I would max out at 4. After 4 hours, I would have to get up and, do something.
For me, it depended on what I was doing.
See, I never got so immersed into any game that I would have to be there for 4 hours straight.
If I was playing trivia on WeirdAl.com, especially if I was on a hot streak, I'd sit there for. I would sit there for 27 hours. Wink.
I would sit on like Yahoo Games forever. Remember Yahoo Games at the end of the 90s? I mean,
No, but I remember Yahoo chat rooms. Oh baby.
yeah, well, they all had their own different chat rooms.
Can I talk about that for a second, or are you on something right now?
Talking about how you were trying to pick up 13-year-old girls in the chat rooms?
With the exception of the 13-year-old part, yes, I was trying to talk to chicks, and I'm like, oh, well, the first thing I did was I tried to, I like started in search engine searching internet pen pals and stuff like that, and I ended up meeting one chick who I'm still in touch with to this day with, which is pretty neat, and then that well kind of went dry. So I moved over to Yahoo Chats, and I'm like, well, what Yahoo Chats do I want to indulge in? And there
Yeah,
was,
you could go to like the city that you lived in.
well, I went based on TV shows that people liked. There was a Yahoo Simpsons chat.
But if you're trying to pick up chicks, you got to do it like you got to go to the city that you live in.
I guess because I was like 16 or 17,
Your
figured,
brother used to bang chicks off of like chat rooms, and then when MySpace came along,
yeah.
he used to hook up with chicks on MySpace like all the time. Like, this was just his regular thing. He would go in there, and
I know about at least one of those instances because there was a chick that
he did it a few times.
he and I
yeah.
both talked to.
I thought
That
it
was weird.
like gross to
Uh,
like do that. Well, I mean they weren't like supermodels, but
um, so there was Yahoo Simpsons. Oh, okay. To answer
he's
your
stealing
question,
your wrestling buddy and stealing your poon. You could have been stealing all his Yahoo chat poon, man.
if I would have, yeah, if I would have had a little bit more street smarts. Um, so you said why wasn't I looking? Why wasn't I looking to talk to women in chats based on location to try to get something close to me? Because I was 16 or 17, I guess I figured I would uh make a good relationship happened online with somebody who lived in a cooler city and then moved to be by
It's
them
so
once I
funny
turned
how
18.
naive people were pre-computers.
Yeah, especially me.
Oh, I can make a relationship work from this beautiful girl I'm going to meet online. No, it never
I
happens that
thought
way.
I was the one. So I thought, of course, like the one is going to be able to make something that
No, you
cool
just use the
happen.
internet to hook up with like older girls. That's all you like. I was always surprised when all these stories would come out about, they'd bust like these pedos that would troll the like the teen girl forums and stuff like that
Yeah,
and try to hook up.
the Chris Hansen show. Yeah.
uh, like I'm looking at this when I'm like 16 or 17, 18 years old, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? There's like a whole world of like hot MILFs and stuff out there. Why would anybody do this when there's all this other like hot chicks out there like dying for it,
Because
you
those
don't even
dudes,
have to put in any work.
because those dudes fell into the worst part of the Matrix.
Your brother didn't put in any work, but he was banging like heffalumps and stuff too. So it wasn't they weren't putting in any work on him either. I mean,
Sure. Um. So, anyways, yeah, meet. I wanted to meet somebody special based on shared interests. That was my logical go-to. Was like, I'm gonna. I'm not gonna find one I'm compatible with unless I know that we like some of the same stuff. So it made sense for me to not start with location because location is just happenstance. Um, I thought about the Simpsons chat and it was too big. You try to get
oh yeah,
someone's attention in there and it's just a sea of
yeah.
comments moving by. It's almost like no one was even talking to each other at all. Um, and so I'm like, oh, I'll try South Park. And I tried South Park and it was still pretty big, but nowhere near as big as the Simpsons one. But it was stupid people and everything was incoherent and crude, just like it was the worst of all South Park fans congregated in one place. Like the stereotypical South Park fan that like Tipper Gore would complain about. Like all those people were in that chat room ruining it all the time. And I'm like, well, this really sucks. And then what did I do? I thought to check out Yahoo's Futurama chat, and it ended up being perfect. It was even smaller than the other two, a lot of smart people in there, and I had a lot of fun. And I this was in 98 or 99. I met a person in Yahoo Futurama chat in the 90s that I literally talked to today, who I've never met in person, but I've maintained a friendship with online this whole time.
I was a forums guy.
Yeah.
I was always on forums. I was never really in the chat rooms.
I
I would go into them every once in a while just to check them out, but
I dabbled a little bit with message boards and forums for like Weird Al and Counting Crows websites, and then it just rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, it felt like a pissing contest that I didn't want to put my time
yeah, a lot of them
into.
were.
Yeah.
Well, they still are today. I mean, go on Reddit.
Oh,
Reddit's just like a giant urinal.
it's difficult, man. It's difficult. So I would, but anyways, the original point I was making was that the end of the 90s, the beginning of the aughts was when there was a shift, and computers and computer screen time became the new number one. Now, don't get me wrong, in the 90s, especially the late 90s, we were spending a lot of time in front of computer screens and a lot of time on the internet. I still don't think it was number one. You mentioned TV time in the 90s, 7 hours on average.
TV time didn't lose the number one spot until the smartphone came out.
You think the smartphone coming? That would be like
Yeah, it did.
uh 04, 05 is when the smart first
Oh
maybe oh,
seven.
really?
Oh seven is when the first Apple phone came out.
But what I'm really saying is like between watching television and actually living life, quote unquote, that those things were still above computer
Well, what
time
did you what
in the
did you do
90s.
more though of in the 90s? Were you really on your computer more than you were watching TV?
No, that's what I'm saying that we weren't. I'm saying I think compute I
No, I
I
mean like even post 90s. Like really? I mean, were you really on the computer more than you were watching TV?
yes. Yeah, because I wanted to get answers and communicate and have a chance to exhibit my ego and try to find somebody who cared about it,
Yeah,
I
so
guess.
everybody was doing that though. Like everybody was doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but that doesn't defy the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is just that yeah, the 90s was the last decade. The 90s was a decade when
The 90s was the last decade for TV. Yes, absolutely.
un, until here's me rabbling again like an old man until it all turned into that damn reality TV crap.
Well,
Which
there's a reason it did, though, because that was the only thing that held people's interests. Because you can only watch the same stupid comedy sitcom bullshit like over and over again. That's why channels like FX blew up when they came out with like Always Sunny and um, AMC with Breaking Bad. And it was only when people started to defy the expectations of TV as it had been for 40 years that people kind of got interested in it again. But even then, I have never watched Always Sunny on TV. I've never watched Breaking Bad on TV.
yeah,
I've never watched Game of Thrones on TV ever. I've either not pirated it or I've watched it on a streaming service. Those are the only ways. I pretty much stopped watching TV altogether. I would say definitely by the early 2000s. There's just no reason for it. There was nothing on. And I wasn't going to pay for cable. Um 2007, like I was saying before, that's when screen time not even took off but started to literally dominate people's lives in every capacity. Here's the stats for you.
it,
How much time do you think somebody spends looking at a screen throughout their entire lifetimes? If you just had to guess.
oh god, the average lifetime
Yes, in an entire lifetime. How much time would you say?
is it tens of thousands of hours?
We'll put that in terms of years, though. Like, how
Oh,
many years do you think? This is average.
20.
And we're talking modern average, by the way. Because this study that I found was done in 2020 or 2021,
Okay, 15 or 20 years is
15 or 20 years.
my guess.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah.
44 years.
44
44 years.
by
44 fucking years staring at a screen. 44 years. And they even break it all down too. Um, they have people that do here, let me bring this back up. 4.5 hours on their phones, so almost 5 hours a day on your phone. You have another 5 hours on your laptop, probably related to work and school. 3 hours of gaming. Again, these are just averages. So the average person spends 13 hours per day staring at a screen in some form or another. That basically leaves 4 hours a day not staring at a screen. 4 hours a day of waking time not staring at a screen. And
when you're nuking your meals and taking a shower. That's pretty much it.
yeah, pretty much. That is absolutely insane to me. I have screen trackers that they're always running on my devices, but I don't ever pay very much attention. Knowing that you were going to bring in this topic and that I was going to piggyback off it this week, I actually checked my screen time. Let it run for a week and then check my screen time. Like I do a fraction of this. The most screen time I have on anything is on my computer. And that's because when I'm on my computer, I'm usually working on a video project or doing something for this or something else. That's where all my time goes. When I'm doing that, I don't have my phone anywhere near me. Like I take great pains to not have my phone anywhere near me at all times of day because I don't want to look at it. Like I just don't give a shit.
Uh, for the majority of my adult life, I've lived somewhere that didn't have a dishwasher. And I'm almost glad. It's almost a little blessing in disguise because my ritual is I only do my dishes once a week. Now, I do a good job of rinsing them off so they don't sit there during the week stinking or anything like that. But I pick one day a week to do all my kitchen chores, wash all my dishes, do some meal prep, and I'll put pro wrestling on in the background as noise so I can just kind of listen to it. And when I hear the crowd start to cheer a little extra loud, that's when I actually pay attention because something special is happening. But other than that, I'm not watching it. That's probably good because it gives me a way of keeping up with wrestling without watching it. Because I do not need that extra screen time of watching what would end up being the equivalent of 5 hours of wrestling a week. And there isn't really anything else I'm going to do while it's on in the background if I'm not doing my kitchen stuff, which is a whole lot of washing dishes. It's just one of those weird little things I wanted to mention because I found a way. I found a way to decrease my own screen time cleverly. And I think it's good to come up with ways to do that. Like I said, I want to follow wrestling, but I don't want to stare at 5 hours of wrestling on a screen every week. It's just, it gets to be too much.
The only time I want to watch anything entertaining on a TV screen is when I'm in a state of relaxation. When I am not doing, when I have nothing to do at all, and I can just sit there and enjoy something, whether it's football or that's basically all I ever watch anymore. It's either anything on a TV is just either a movie or I'm watching football. So when it's not football season, like my TV is just never on ever. And again, I don't use my phone. What was this? Like 5 hours a day? There's no fucking way. I can't even imagine what you could be doing on your phone for 5 hours a day. That's insane. But anyway, I was 44 years, 44 years of your life
Staring at screens.
staring at screens. That is Matrix shit right there.
For your average person, what is the number one thing that could make them want to make them compelled to look at their screen less? What could change in their lives to make them not have better company to enjoy?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm sure everybody has their different motivations for why they do it. And frankly, let them stare at a screen all day. Like, I don't give a shit.
A lot of people say it's going to give you brain cancer, and I don't really lean either way on that argument. Maybe it will, and maybe it won't. I don't know.
Well, I think it just gives you a different kind of cancer because there's no way that's not short circuiting your ability to focus and your ability to think.
Yeah.
There's no way that it's not doing that. That's why I spend about 2 hours, I'd say about an hour and a half, reading every night before I fall asleep. Never ever looking at my phone. Like
yeah.
my phone, I'll plug it in, I'll leave it downstairs in the living room by my spot on the couch. I do not take it to bed with me, and I'll read for a couple hours and then fall asleep. I don't have any problems sleeping at all. And if I'm out during the day, if I have nothing to do, I got a book in my car. I'll sit and read my book instead of scroll fucking because I'll be scrolling Twitter. That's all I'm going to be doing otherwise, or
Yeah.
Reddit. It's going to be Twitter or Reddit. So
This past summer, I got into a really good habit of going for walks on the nearby nature trail whenever it was a nice day out. I did a really good job of not making excuses, being like, if it's a nice day and I can go walk, I will go walk. And
go walk on a shitty day too. It's still nice.
um, mm, I'm working on that.
Maybe not in the winter. Like I hate walking anywhere in the winter, but
Yeah.
like on a rainy day, it's still fucking sweet as shit.
No, I did some drizzly days, and I did a rainy day or two
Do
actually.
a stormy day. Those are cool as shit.
Um, when winter dies this year, I'm gonna get a bike and I'm gonna start biking the trails and start going further and start seeing new scenery. And I think that's gonna make me even more compelled to keep doing it more and pushing myself to see if I can go a little further on the trail this time than I did last time. And since it's a circle that goes around Stevens Point, I might eventually one of these days do the whole circle. Um, if I can find a way to keep that interesting and keep that fresh, that's just less time I'm staring at a screen, getting exercise. If I combine a little bit of good diet with that exercise, who knows? Maybe I can get healthy.
Maybe you too can find a Facebook whore,
Yeah, there you go.
just
There
like
you
your
go.
brother used to do. Or no, MySpace whore. Sorry,
And I mean,
a nice plump MySpace whore.
obviously, Trinity is not going to go for this, you know, because the one doesn't have a physique like this.
Well,
I need to hit those bike trails, and I need
there's
to.
plenty of plumpers around here that'll go for that, no problem.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Trinity.
You might have to. There might be a couple kids in the mix, but whatever.
I wanna I want to burn so many calories biking this summer that when she sees me, she goes, "Whoa." That's what I'm getting at. I just wanted to make that whoa joke. I've been waiting, what, 35 minutes to go, whoa. Uh, yeah.
And she'll offer to share her calories with you. Okay, is that all we got? Is that it?
That might be all we've got. Yeah, check that chat again, see what's up. I'm just waiting for someone to say we can't see you or hear you. That would be pretty funny.
Nope, we're doing okay.
We're doing all right.
Yep.
Very good. I keep saying and too much. That's bad.
Any final thoughts?
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Next week, I'm bringing in Dana Carvey, the unsung hero of comedy in the '90s, as one of my topics. I I just watched with a buddy that documentary about why the Dana Carvey show failed. And one of the things that they brought up was something you brought up about 20 minutes ago, which was towards the end of the '90s, they were trying to come up with something fresh to do on ABC primetime because the whole uh, predictable sitcom formula was pretty fucking played out at that point. They were trying to come up with the next thing that would be a better alternative
Yeah,
than
but
that.
they were all trying to play it safe at the same time, though. The networks.
Dana Carvey show was the only show like not trying to play it safe. And
Yeah, I
that's
know,
why it
but
was awesome.
what I'm saying is that it
But
was the cable networks that had to come out with the really fresh stuff that people were
and
into.
that is, yeah, that's generally what happened. But what ended up happening in the late '90s? All the family shows like Home Improvement turned into buddy shows and relationship triangle shows like Dharma and Greg and Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. That was ABC's solution for keeping making things
Yeah.
refreshed, but still just finding a new hackneyed formula to replace the other one. And then
Mhm.
they milked the first one for all they could. Now they're going to start a new one that they can milk for all they can. Um, yeah. So what are the final thoughts? What are the points I'm really trying to make here? Um, the, the point I was really trying to make about how the end of the '90s was the end of the '90s was the beginning of us being obsessed with computer screens is let me put it this way. I You mentioned 2007 being the advent of smartphones taking over.
Mhm.
I would say
And it wasn't like a slow takeover like computers were either.
s-
Like
s-
there was a gradual increase with computer screen time. Phones were boom, they were out there and everybody had one
as soon as you get
in like a year.
yeah, as soon as you get used to going like this instead of using a mouse, boom, it's second nature and you're doing it and you can't stop doing it because it's in your pocket. It's everywhere you go. Um, I think in 2000, uh, sitting in front of a computer went from rising up the list to officially being number one. But I think in 2007, it went from being number one to being number one with a bullet so hard that it was what we did more than everything else on the list put together.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I want to say about that. And so one of the points I was trying to make, and it was really difficult for me to articulate, is the '90s would have been the most socially mature we ever got before the computer screen obsession took over. And that might not necessarily be worth a lot.
See, that's a good point. That's the point we should have focused on this entire time. But that's true. That is true. Like as a civilization, that was literally the most socially mature we ever got as a species
before before technology kind of really got its claws into us and
before the Matrix took
yeah,
over.
pulled us into the matrix, so to speak, in a certain way. Um, yeah, how does that feel? The '90s was the most mature we ever were, and it's always going to be that
Well,
way.
but
There's no going back.
yeah, a lot of the people from the 90s are still mature. The ones that didn't get sucked into the Matrix.
Well,
Now, like the old fucks that I was talking about a couple weeks ago, the people who were cool in the 90s, who basically just turned into boomers.
what I was going to say next was here's the thing. It was the most socially mature we ever got before technology took over. But then what did we do? We got on emails, we got on social media, and we didn't act mature. we didn't our behavior didn't reflect.
We shared like Tub Girl and shit like that. We'd expanded our horizons. We went to new frontiers of shock and gore that we had never seen
Sir,
before.
maybe in your subcultures. I'm talking about what most people did. Most people, let's see, in 2000, most people wanted to use emails to share greeting cards and recipes and take care
Mhm.
of business faster at work.
Yeah, some people did that.
Um,
Some lame people did that. Yeah, for sure.
it, we and comedians mention this all the time. We've got all this technology at our fingertips, and what do we use it for? We use it for stuff like sharing Tub Girl and Meat Spin and stuff like that. Um, it's almost like the human race just can't win because of ourselves, which is a very you thought
Yeah.
to share.
But yeah, whatever.
It's because we're not asking questions.
I asked all the questions though, and like they lead nowhere. None of it goes anywhere. So I'm not really sure what we're accomplishing. You know what? This is a discussion for another day.
And until that
But
day
I'm going to leave that with you.
until that
Like
day
there's no
comes,
answers there.
go back and reread your Descartes and reread your Plato. Maybe if you read it the correct way, you'll come up with better questions to ask. No, read Socrates. That's the question, guy.
Yeah, but nobody cares about Socrates though. Like later philosophers always used to be like, yeah, it's good for what he brought to philosophy, but nobody takes him seriously as a philosopher because he was just making dumb philosophical mistakes and engaging in logical fallacies left and right.
And it But his main thing was asking questions. It's not a fallacy to
Sure,
ask
sure.
questions.
But what I'm saying is that after the 2000 years of the Socratic method, where has it gotten us? Well, like we're no closer now to discovering the truth of anything than
That's
we
the
were back then.
No, that's the problem. Your average person is not intellectually capable
Your average person will never want to be
of
though.
executing the Socratic method properly and
They but
effectively.
they never will be.
Because of why? Because of the way that the people who own this country keep us dumbed down and
Well,
always seeking ego
okay,
and comfort.
but why do
That's
some
what
people break out of that? How well, like what makes the tiny fraction of people who break out of that and be like, "Hey, I think we're being controlled by some pretty bad people here,"
it
while
takes.
everybody else just keeps their nose in their phone.
It takes being dumb enough to believe you're the one. That's what it takes.
I think they all believe they're the one. I think that's the
Well,
algorithms
what
exist to cater to your ego and make you think
you
that
previously
you're
said
special.
most people wouldn't want to take the red pill. So how is that in keeping with the idea that everyone thinks they're the one? And not everybody thinks they're the one. People are like, "Oh, you must be some kind of
I
jackass to
just
want
mean
to think
like
you're the one."
no, like in a fantasy type of a way. Look, in the same way that people will watch a movie like
Oh, everyone thinks they're the one pretentiously.
yeah,
They
yeah.
they like,
No.
yeah,
So the example that I would have is they watch a movie like what was the one with the girl with the bow and arrow and it was like a
Hunger
trilogy
Games.
Hunger Games. They will watch something like Hunger Games and cheer the protagonists as they go after the evil oppressive government. The evil oppressive government already runs their lives and anybody who speaks out against it even remotely they will turn around and shoot down and not even recognize it when it happens in their own lives. But yet somehow think, man, if I lived, like how many progressives do you think will make the point? Well, if I lived back in, the South back in the 1800s, I would have spoken out righteously against slavery. No, you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
You absolutely would not have. There is nothing to indicate you ever would have. You can't even stand up for anything now. And it's the same kind of mentality with these people who are just egotistical enough to think that what the algorithm is feeding them is making them bigger and better and stronger and smarter in every single way. And they're just being duped the entire way.
Because they're not asking enough questions the right way.
The right way. There you go. The right way. They're not doing it the right way. But they'll say the same thing about you, though. They are just as adamant.
Because all of our feedback loops are different, and everyone's like, "You're not asking questions the right way."
You got to spend more time on Twitter, man.
because
Like that is an education you can't get anywhere else in the self-deceptive nature of the human being.
I mean,
And on that note,
I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah, man, go back and reread your Descartes and your Plato. Reread some.
I read them once. I got the gist of it.
Man, give me next week. Bring me some examples of Socrates committing logical fallacies because I don't remember that part. I thought the way I see it. There's that famous.
Having argued, look, this is the whole thing. I'll put Socrates out there in a nutshell for you. He spends all of his time arguing about the definitions of undefinable terms. That is the entire thing. That's everything.
To get you to abstract.
But it doesn't go anywhere because in everybody in their own individual head has a different idea of what honor means or sacrifice or any of these other terms that he just wants to argue about ad nauseum that ultimately just go nowhere.
Not practical. They don't go anywhere practically, but
that's practically is the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that drives humanity forward.
What if you are opening up certain ducts in your brain that enable you to think about other things more broadly, incidentally, because of that abstracting that you did?
Socrates drank hemlock because a bunch of idiots told him to drink hemlock.
I thought it was the people who owned his society that forced him to.
Yeah.
What was his alternative?
Not drinking hemlock, forcing them to put him to death, make a martyr out of him. There's a million ways. Anyway, I'm going to resist the urge to carry on this conversation. This is way too big for right now, but this is all very Matrix relevant.
Have you ever seen that painting / poster where Socrates and Plato, or Aristotle and Plato, are in the Lyceum, and Plato is going like this? He's saying that the realm of the forms, the abstract, the objective reality, is the reality that matters. And Aristotle is going like this, saying it's all about balance, it's all about subjectivity, it's about what's here, what we can sense with our tangible sense with our senses tangibly. I think they should add Socrates standing next to them, going like this, like John Cena. I think that would be perfect. If somebody makes that poster, I would buy it. I would wear that t-shirt. Because Socrates is trying to tell us, yeah, I'm in the Matrix, or am I? You can't see me. See, he asked a question.
Socrates will spend all day arguing what is subjective and what is balance.
Your feedback loop is that you're biased against gadflies. That's why you can't see him for his merits.
No, I absolutely appreciate his merits.
Except for that end part with the hemlock.
Anyway. All right. So next week, I'm going to bring in Tanya. One more comment. Ren and Stimpy was quintessential. Hey. Slow down. I'm bringing in Ren and Stimpy sometime. They're on my list.
I saw that.
Yeah, that was a great show. You know, never mind. I was just going to start like another conversation with that question. I'm cutting it off.
All right. I'm bringing in Dana Carvey. You're bringing in Tanya Harding, and then we're probably each gonna maybe bring in another one, but I'm not sure. We'll see. Whatever happens.
Yeah. Well, I have two Tanya Harding specific things, so you'll see what they are. I'm taking us out, playing music. Good night, everybody.
Who remembers Night at the Roxbury?
Thanks for watching. It was great to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Later.